I woke up just past midnight, thirsty enough that my tongue felt like sandpaper. At 72, I've accepted that sleep and I are no longer loyal friends. I slipped out of bed, careful not to creak the old wooden frame, and made my way down the hallway toward the kitchen for a glass of water. Halfway there, I stopped. A faint whisper curled around the corner, my daughter-in-law's voice. Lauren never stayed up this late. Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. I stepped closer, easing myself behind the wall that separated the hallway from the kitchen. Tomorrow night after dinner, she won't suspect a thing. We'll sign her in. Andrew agreed. My breath caught so violently I had to press a hand to my chest to keep from gasping out loud. Sign who in? And then she said my name. Dawn won't fight it. She's too tired these days. My knees nearly gave out. The glass I'd been planning to fill suddenly felt like a rope around my neck. My own son. Agreeing to something like this? My own child? A wave of heat washed over me, followed by a cold so sharp it felt like a blade sliding beneath my skin. I stood frozen, listening to the woman who married my boy discuss my fate like I was a piece of furniture she was done tripping over. Images slammed into me, memories of holding Andrew as a baby, of walking him to school, of nursing him through fevers, of comforting him when his father died. And now he was agreeing to this? I backed away slowly, every step deliberate, silent. My hands trembled as I pressed them against my chest. I knew without question, if I stayed until morning, I would lose my freedom forever. I had to leave. Tonight. But before I continue, before I tell you what I heard next and how I escaped, please subscribe to the channel. Stories from elders like me matter, and your support helps ensure they keep being told. Now, let me take you back to the moment everything changed. Before that night. Before the whisper that shattered everything. I used to believe my life, though imperfect, still had a gentle rhythm to it. I had learned to live with loss. Or at least I told myself I had. My husband, Mark, passed away 8 years ago. One moment he was laughing with me over burnt toast. The next he was collapsing onto the kitchen floor. A heart attack stealing the breath from both of us. For months after the funeral, the house felt as hollow as my chest. There were days I didn't open the curtains. Days I forgot whether I'd eaten. Days I reached across the bed for him, only to find cold sheets. I was 64 then. Old enough to feel the weight of widowhood, but young enough to believe I could still build some kind of life. And for a while I tried. I volunteered at the library. I gardened. I baked for the neighbors. But grief is a heavy thing. It has a strange way of settling into the walls, into the furniture, into your bones. Andrew, my only child, visited twice a month at first. He'd sit on the couch, glance around the house and say, "Mom, I don't like you here alone. You need family." It was sweet, in its own way. He'd always been a sensitive boy, gentle, thoughtful, the kind who'd pick flowers for me in elementary school. When he married Lauren, I welcomed her with all the warmth I had. She was ambitious, polished, always rushing from one goal to the next. I thought she'd soften over time, that she'd settle into the family the way a puzzle piece finds its place. I didn't know then that some edges don't soften, they sharpen. About 5 years ago, Andrew sat at my kitchen table with red-rimmed eyes. "Mom, please, move in with us. I worry about you every night. It'll be better for all of us." His voice cracked on that last line. And oh, how a mother's heart betrays her logic. I sold Mark's and my home, the one we'd built memories in for decades, and moved into theirs. At first, the transition felt hopeful. Their house buzzed with noise and life, which was comforting after years of silence. Lauren greeted me with bright smiles, Andrew with warm hugs. The guest room they prepared for me was painted in soft creams with a small window overlooking the garden. For the first time in years, I felt myself breathe just a little easier. I cooked dinner a few nights each week. Hearty stews Andrew loved when he was a boy, roasted chicken, fresh bread. Lauren praised everything. "Oh, Dawn, this is so delicious. You're spoiling us." Those early months were peaceful. I folded laundry with satisfaction, swept the floors, baked on weekends, tended their garden. It felt good to be useful again, to give my hands something to do, to feel that I was part of a family rather than a ghost drifting through my old house. But slowly, so slowly I almost missed it. The tone began to shift. Lauren stopped sitting with me during breakfast. Her smiles became thinner. She closed doors softly when I entered a room, as though I'd interrupted. She began using the word space a lot. I just need some space to work. I need a little space to breathe. Maybe you could give us more space in the evenings. I told myself I was imagining things, that she was just stressed from work, that I should be more patient, more understanding, more small. Then came the comments disguised as concern. Dawn, are you sure you can handle cooking tonight? You seem a bit slow after lunch. You should rest more. You know, at your age. At my age. A phrase sharp enough to cut. Andrew rarely contradicted her. He'd murmur, Mom, maybe she's right, without meeting my eyes. A tiny wound each time, small enough to ignore in the moment, but deep enough to scar over months. I didn't recognize the distance forming, not at first. But eventually, I began eating alone more often. My laundry folded itself. My phone stayed silent. The warmth I'd relied on slowly thinned into something cold and intangible. I tried to convince myself it was temporary. Families go through phases. Stress makes people sharp. But deep down, I felt it. I was becoming a shadow in my own son's home. And the night I heard Lauren whispering about tomorrow night was the moment that shadow finally broke and realized it needed to run. The shift in the house didn't happen in a single moment. It was a slow unraveling, a quiet erosion of warmth that I didn't want to acknowledge. Denial is a strange comfort. It lets you pretend the small hurts don't add up. But they do. And they did. It began with Lauren's comments, thinly coated in sweetness, hollow at the core. Dawn, don't strain yourself. Just sit. We can handle things faster without the extra coordination. Coordination. As if helping wash vegetables required a synchronized dance routine I wasn't trained for. Another time, she found me folding laundry in the living room. Oh, you're doing that here? She gave a polite little laugh. It makes the space feel cluttered. Maybe you can fold in your room? You know, to keep things tidy for when guests come. I told myself she didn't mean harm. Some people care about appearances more than others. But then it escalated. One evening, I made Andrew's favorite dish. Lemon chicken with roasted potatoes. I spent hours on it, humming to myself, looking forward to the small joy of sharing dinner as a family. When the table was set, Lauren walked in, glanced at the meal, and said, Andrew and I already ordered takeout. You didn't have to waste your energy. Waste. My energy. My effort. My love. Andrew kissed her cheek, opened the takeout containers, and said nothing to me, not even a thank you. They ate together on the couch, watching a show, laughing. My lemon chicken sat untouched on the stove, releasing steam into a room where I no longer belonged. That night, I cried quietly into my pillow, so they wouldn't hear. A few weeks later, Lauren started making subtle accusations of forgetfulness. Dawn, did you misplace the mail again? It's not where I left it. Once annoyance. Twice coincidence. But by the sixth time, I realized what she was doing. One afternoon, she brought home groceries, set the bags down, and sighed dramatically. I swear, Dawn, you're slipping. You forgot to put the eggs in the fridge. They're ruined. Except I hadn't touched the groceries. Andrew came home, and Lauren retold the story with a concerned voice. Your mom seems overwhelmed. Maybe she needs more rest. Andrew nodded. Mom, it's okay if things get harder with age. Just tell us when you can't keep up. The humiliation burned through me, but I swallowed it. What else could I do? I lived under their roof. Or at least that's what I told myself I was doing. They were slowly rewriting my identity, turning me into someone fragile, incompetent, burdensome. That word, burden, became a constant ghost in the house. I heard it one afternoon when I passed by their bedroom door, slightly ajar. We can't live like this forever, Lauren whispered. She's always here. She slows everything down. Andrew replied with a tired sigh, I know. But what do you want me to do? She's my mom. She's your mom, Lauren shot back. Not mine. The way she said it, sharp, cold, heavy with resentment. As if I were a guest who'd overstayed my welcome. As if the years I spent raising Andrew held no weight. As if my existence required justification. I walked away before I could hear more. Some wounds are painful enough without hearing the extension of the blade. Over time, they found ways to push me out of the daily rhythms of the household. Lauren changed the kitchen organization without telling me. Moved the cleaning supplies to high shelves. Placed heavy pots where I could barely reach. Every time I tried to help, she'd appear with that same tight smile. "Oh, Dawn, it's okay. Just sit." Really? Just sit. Just be quiet. Just disappear. Andrew, once my sweet boy, grew distant. He stopped asking how I was sleeping. He stopped inviting me to watch shows with them. He started walking past me with a distracted nod, like I was a stranger he vaguely recognized. One afternoon, I overheard him on the phone while I watered the plants outside. "No, we haven't decided anything yet," he said. "But it's exhausting. I didn't think having her here would be this hard." My hands tightened around the watering can. This hard? I barely asked for anything. I cleaned their home, cooked their meals, lived quietly in my room. I'd given everything I had, including the home Mark and I built, and still, I was somehow too much. The worst moment came about a month before the night everything unraveled. Lauren hosted a small dinner party with her coworkers. I helped set the table, laid out silverware, polished glasses. When the guests arrived, Lauren greeted them warmly, then leaned toward me with a tight-lipped smile. "Dawn, maybe you should eat in your room tonight. It'll be less crowded." She said it quietly but not quietly enough. The guests heard. I saw the flicker of shock on a woman's face. Andrew didn't defend me. He didn't even look at me. He simply guided me toward the hallway with a gentle hand on my back, as if ushering out a disruptive pet. I sat on my bed with a plate of food. Lauren slid through the door, like I was in a nursing home already. The muffled laughter from the dining room felt like knives pressed into my throat. I realized then that my presence wasn't merely tolerated. They were actively pushing me out of their lives. Piece by piece. Room by room. Day by day. Until that night, when I overheard the plan that made everything horrifyingly clear. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't stress. This wasn't tension. This was a decision. A deliberate, calculated plan to remove me. Quietly. Permanently. And once I heard that, nothing in the world could have convinced me to stay. The moment that confirmed everything. The moment the truth took full shape. Didn't come with shouting or confrontation. It came quietly, like a thief crawling into my life on soft feet. It was a Thursday evening. Andrew and Lauren had gone upstairs after dinner, whispering in that hushed, tense way I'd grown used to. I stayed behind to wash the dishes, partly out of habit, partly because it gave me something to hold on to. Something that made me feel useful instead of invisible. The running water and clinking plates usually drowned out their conversations, but that night, the air in the house felt unnaturally still. I shut the faucet and listened. Their voices drifted through the thin drywall like smoke. "We can't keep this up," Lauren hissed. My hands froze in soapy water. "She's too much of a burden. I'm exhausted." "You're exhausted." My heart thudded once, twice, then seemed to stop completely. Andrew's voice was low, defeated. "I know. But what choice do we have?" "Oh, don't pretend you're helpless," Lauren snapped. "We talked about this. We already looked at options. You said it yourself. Your mom can't keep living here." My stomach dropped. Options. The same cursed word I'd heard whispered days earlier. The one that had chased me through sleepless nights. I leaned closer to the wall. Breath held. Lauren continued, her voice dripping with irritation. "The facility said they can take her next week. All we need is her signature. She doesn't need to understand the full details, just sign the papers." My fingers trembled violently. I braced myself against the counter. Andrew cleared his throat. I feel guilty." "Guilty?" Lauren scoffed. "Are you serious? We've bent over backward for her. 5 years of cooking, cleaning, missing out on vacations because of her. We've done our duty. It's time she goes somewhere with professionals." Professionals. A polite word for a place you send someone when you want them gone. I pressed my hand to my mouth to stifle a sob. Lauren wasn't finished. She's gotten slower. More forgetful. She's not contributing. All she does is take up space. You know I'm right. Andrew didn't argue. He didn't defend me. He didn't correct her. He didn't say Mom still deserves respect. He said nothing. And that silence, his silence, hurt more than anything Lauren said. Then came the final blow. We'll bring the papers downstairs after dinner tomorrow. No drama. No discussion. She'll trust you enough to sign. Once she's in the facility, we'll work things out from there. I felt my vision darkening. My knees weakened. I clutched the counter like it was the only thing keeping me upright. Tomorrow. After dinner. Sign her in. That was their timeline. That was their plan. And then, as if to slice whatever thread was left holding my heart together, Lauren said quietly, "She's lived her life. Now she needs to stop interfering with ours." A single tear slid down my cheek, falling into the sink, mixing with dishwater and the last remnants of a meal I wasn't invited to enjoy. In that moment, everything inside me, every hope, every excuse I'd made for them, dissolved. They weren't stressed. They weren't overwhelmed. They weren't struggling to adjust. They were done with me. I crept back to my room in dead silence, walking like a ghost through a house I no longer recognized. When I shut the door behind me, I pressed my forehead against it and whispered, "My own child agreeing to this?" No answer came, just the sound of muffled laughter from upstairs, their voices blending into a life they were planning to live without me. And that was the moment the decision formed, clean and sharp in my mind. I would not be here tomorrow night. I would not be signing anything. And I would never, ever, let them steal the last years of my life. I didn't sleep at all that night. I lay in the dark with my pulse pounding against my ribs, staring at the faint glow of the hallway light under my door. Every creak of the house felt like a countdown. Every muffled footstep overhead reminded me that I had less than 24 hours before they'd place papers in front of me. Papers meant to trap me in a place I could never leave. I waited until I heard their bedroom door click shut, and the low hum of the fan they always used at night. Only then did I sit up and reach for the small suitcase I kept in my closet. My hands shook so violently I had to close my eyes just to steady myself. I didn't pack clothes. Not yet. Clothes could be bought later. What I needed most were the things that proved I existed, the things they couldn't take from me. My birth certificate. My ID. My small savings envelope. A photo of my late husband, Mark, on our last anniversary, and the wedding ring he gave me when we were too young to understand how fragile life would be. I tucked them into my purse, zipped it shut and whispered, "I'm leaving, love. I hope you'd be proud." I opened the bedroom door an inch at a time. The hallway was dim, lit only by the moonlight slipping through the window at the top of the stairs. Every shadow looked alive. Every sound felt magnified. I stepped carefully, the wooden floorboards cool beneath my feet. As I reached the top of the stairs, I paused. If Andrew came out of his room now, if Lauren decided she wanted a glass of water, everything would fall apart. My freedom, my safety, my dignity, all of it hung on silence. But the house remained still. I made my way down the stairs, gripping the rail to keep my balance. Halfway down, a floorboard groaned under my weight. I froze, breath trapped in my throat. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Nothing. I continued. In the kitchen, moonlight spilled across the counters like a dim spotlight. I avoided turning on the lights. Instead, I reached for my shoes by memory, slipping them on quickly. I tied the laces with trembling fingers, biting back the urge to cry. The back door was the final barrier. I turned the lock slowly, praying it wouldn't click too loudly. It didn't. But when I pulled the door open, the hinges let out the faintest whine. I flinched. Still no movement upstairs. The night air hit me like a shock, a cold, sharp slap that filled my lungs with something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Real freedom. I stepped outside and quietly pulled the door shut behind me. For a moment, I stood there in the dark yard, clutching my purse to my chest, listening to the distant hum of cars on the main road. The house I had tried so hard to make a home stared back at me like a stranger. "I'm done," I whispered. "I won't let you bury me alive." I walked down the street until I was far enough that the house disappeared behind the curve of the road. Only then did I pull out my phone and call a cab. When the driver arrived, he looked at me, an elderly woman alone with a purse and haunted eyes, and asked gently, "Midnight trip?" I nodded. "Yes. And please don't look back." He didn't. And neither did I. As the cab drove through the sleeping city, streetlights slipping across my face like passing ghosts, I felt something inside me shift. The panic that had fueled my escape slowly settled into something steadier. Something almost like clarity. For the first time in years, I wasn't surrounded by their voices, their judgments, their coldness. I could think. Really think. And as we pulled into the hotel driveway, a quiet truth rose inside me, warming my chest like a small flame. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't dependent. I wasn't the fragile burden they had spent years convincing themselves I was. They never bothered to ask about my finances. They assumed, no, expected, that I was broke, that I had nothing, that I needed them to survive. They never asked about the investments Mark and I built over decades. They never asked about the condo I sold. They never asked where that money went. Because they never cared to know. They simply believed what was most convenient for them. But the truth? I had spent my marriage learning everything about stability, savings, bonds, market funds, real estate. Mark and I had built a life from nothing. We weren't flashy, but we were smart. And after he passed, I was careful, cautious. I didn't touch a dime I didn't need. I invested. I waited. I let time work for me, even when my heart was too broken to move forward. And the money grew. They never knew about the portfolio Mark started when Andrew was still in diapers. They never knew about the bonds maturing quietly each year. They certainly never knew I had an account set aside for emergencies. What could be more of an emergency than escaping your own child? When I checked into the hotel, tired, shaken, still trembling, the clerk asked for a credit card. I handed him the one Mark had insisted I keep just for myself. His expression changed when it went through without hesitation, without blinking. 2 nights, he asked. Yes, I said. Then after a pause, actually make it 3. When I stepped into the soft glow of the room, I closed the door behind me and leaned against it, letting the silence wash over me. I reached into my purse and touched the folder that held my financial documents. Proof of the life I'd quietly built. They thought they were discarding a week-old woman. But soon they would learn the truth. The woman they tried to trap had more power than they ever imagined. And I was done hiding it. The morning after my escape felt unreal. Sunlight filtered through the hotel curtains in soft ribbons, falling across the white sheets like a gentle reminder that I was somewhere safe, somewhere they couldn't reach me. For the first time in years, I didn't wake to footsteps outside my door, or the creak of someone checking if I was up yet, or the low murmur of a conversation about me instead of with me. I woke to silence, to freedom, to possibility. I took a long breath, one that expanded my chest instead of tightening it. Then another. My body still ached from the stress of the night before. But beneath that ache was something new. Something I hadn't felt since before Mark died. Control. After a hot shower and a cup of hotel coffee, I opened my purse and laid everything out on the bed. My ID, my documents, my savings envelope, my credit cards, the old photograph of Mark. Help me be strong, I whispered to him, touching the faded picture. Then I got to work. First, I extended my hotel stay for a full week. Something inside me knew I needed time. Time to rebuild. Time to plan. Time to breathe. The clerk smiled warmly when I requested the extension, completely unaware that this moment was the first brick in the new foundation of my life. Next, I called the cab driver who'd dropped me off at midnight. He remembered me. How could he not? And agreed to pick me up within 20 minutes. My first stop, I said. A clothing store. I looked down at my worn sweater, stretched thin from years of wear. I didn't want to look like the woman they pushed around. I didn't want to look like the person they dismissed, ignored, or deemed too much of a burden. I wanted to see someone different in the mirror. At the boutique, a young saleswoman greeted me with a bright smile. Looking for something special today? Yes, I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. Something that makes me feel like myself again. She guided me through racks of soft blouses, warm coats, comfortable slacks. I tried on pieces I never would have chosen before. When I looked in the dressing room mirror, I barely recognized the woman standing there. She looked lighter, straighter, present. Afterward, I let her help me pick a new pair of shoes, a scarf, and a handbag that wasn't fraying at the edges. It felt indulgent, almost rebellious. But it also felt right. From there, the cab took me to a small salon tucked between a cafe and a flower shop. When I stepped in, the scent of lavender and citrus enveloped me. A hairstylist with soft eyes approached. "What would you like today?" I took a breath. A fresh start. She smiled, understanding far more than my words conveyed. As she trimmed away the split ends and styled my hair into a soft, elegant shape, strands of the old version of me fell to the floor. With each snip, I felt lighter, seen, reborn. When she turned me toward the mirror, I felt tears sting my eyes, not from sadness, but relief. That tired, invisible woman who lived in Andrew and Lauren's house was gone. I left the salon with my shoulders back, my chin lifted, and my heart steady. The world around me seemed brighter. Not because it changed, but because I had. Back at the hotel, I opened my laptop. Years ago, Mark taught me how to manage our accounts online, and I'd kept the habit alive quietly. I logged into my investment account and stared at the numbers on the screen, real, tangible proof that I had options. I wasn't broke. I wasn't dependent. I wasn't disposable. And now, I wasn't afraid. I spent the next hours researching apartments, reading reviews, looking at photos. Not luxury, just something clean, warm, and mine. A place where I could hang Mark's photo on the wall without asking permission. A place where I could walk without feeling like I was intruding. By late afternoon, I'd found it. A small but beautiful one-bedroom apartment near the water, with lots of light and a balcony big enough for a few potted plants. They had an opening. Tours available immediately. I booked one for the next morning. As evening settled, I stood by the hotel window, looking out at the city lights. My life had flipped upside down in less than 24 hours. I'd gone from a woman being quietly erased to a woman rediscovering herself piece by piece. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud. This wasn't just a glow-up. This was reclamation, rebirth, return. Tomorrow, I would take my next step. The step that would lead to the life I should have had all along. The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose humming beneath my ribs. Not fear, not dread, purpose. It had been years since I felt that kind of weight in my steps, steady, deliberate, rooted in my own decisions rather than someone else's expectations. I dressed in my new clothes, brushed my freshly styled hair, and looked in the mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't a shadow. She wasn't a burden. She wasn't the silent figure tiptoeing around someone else's moods. She was a woman with a plan. The cab dropped me off in front of the apartment complex just after 10. The building was modern, simple, with clean lines and wide windows that let in light rather than hiding it. The property manager, a middle-aged woman named Susan, met me inside the lobby, her smile warm and unhurried. "I'm glad you could come today," she said. "Let's take a look." The tour felt surreal. Sunlight spilled across the hardwood floors. The kitchen counters gleamed. The balcony overlooked a small courtyard filled with flowers. As we entered the bedroom, I imagined Mark's photo on the nightstand, my clothes in the closet, my books lined neatly on shelves. A home. My home. "I'll take it," I said. Susan blinked. "Are you sure?" "You can think." "I'm sure." We sat together in the office while she prepared the lease documents. As I signed page after page, I felt the tightness in my chest unravel. Each signature was a step away from the house I fled in the middle of the night. A step away from abandonment. A step toward myself. When it was done, Susan handed me the keys with a satisfied nod. "Welcome home, Dawn." Home. A single word that made my throat tighten. From there, the next phase of my plan unfolded. I needed expertise. Real professional support from people who wouldn't dismiss me, belittle me, or make decisions for me behind closed doors. So I visited 3 offices. A lawyer, a banker, and a financial advisor. The lawyer came first. His name was Mr. Rigby, a calm, silver-haired man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I told him everything, every comment, every manipulation, every whispered conversation, and the plan to have me sign papers that would send me somewhere I didn't choose. He listened without interrupting, taking notes carefully. When I finished, he leaned back. "You did the right thing leaving," he said. "And you've done the right thing coming to me." He explained my rights clearly, what they legally could and couldn't do, what they might attempt, how to protect myself, how to make sure no one could claim authority over my life without my consent. Then he slid a stack of forms toward me, documents to solidify my autonomy, power of attorney papers, medical directives, statements of independence. "Fill these out," he said. No one can force you into any facility or sign anything on your behalf without breaking the law. This ensures your voice is the one in control." My hand didn't shake when I signed. Next came the bank. The banker, a young man named Daniel, helped me open new accounts separate from anything Andrew might still have access to from long ago. He reviewed my investments, updated beneficiaries, and reorganized my financial structure so that everything was untouchably mine. "You've managed your money incredibly well," he said, glancing over the figures. "You're in a very strong position." Strong. Not vulnerable. Not dependent. Strong. The financial advisor was last, a woman named Miriam who had a firm handshake and a sharp mind. She reviewed my portfolio and laid out long-term projections. She talked to me like I was a capable adult, not an inconvenience. When we finished, she looked at me with quiet admiration. "You've been underestimated," she said. "But you're far from powerless." Her words settled deep in my chest. For the first time since Mark died, I felt like I had a future, one I could shape with my own hands. That evening, back at my hotel, I spread everything across the bed. Legal documents, bank statements, financial plans, my apartment lease, my new keys. This wasn't chaos. This was strategy. Every paper represented a step in reclaiming my life. Every signature was a statement of independence. Every key, every document, every printed page added weight to the truth. I wasn't running anymore. I was preparing. Preparing for the moment they would finally face what they tried to discard. Preparing for the day they would learn that the woman they underestimated could dismantle their lies with a single reveal. A reveal I was now ready to deliver. I didn't rush the confrontation. I wanted it to land. I wanted them to see, with undeniable clarity, what they had tried to throw away. And most of all, I wanted witnesses. It happened 1 week after I moved into my new apartment, a modest, sunlit space filled with fresh flowers and quiet hope. I'd already furnished it with the help of delivery services, decorated it with soft colors, and hung Mark's picture above the bedside lamp. For the first time in years, I felt rooted. The timing for the reveal presented itself naturally. Andrew and Lauren were hosting a neighborhood meet and greet at their house. A small gathering of friends, coworkers, and parents from the local school. A perfect environment. A perfect audience. A perfect mirror in which they would be forced to face themselves. I arrived unannounced. People were mingling in the backyard, sipping wine beneath warm patio lights. Conversations buzzed. Laughter floated across the air. And there stood Andrew and Lauren in the center, smiling, polished, the picture of a wholesome, involved couple. For a moment, I simply watched them. Then Lauren turned, saw me, and her face drained of color so fast it was as if someone had pulled a plug. "Dawn," she whispered. The crowd turned. Eyes fell on me, on my neat blouse, elegant haircut, and calm expression. I didn't look like the frail, confused woman they had described to others. I looked composed, clear, unbroken. Andrew stepped toward me, stumbling slightly. "Mom, where have you been?" We were worried sick." A murmur rippled through the guests. I held his gaze. "Worried?" My voice was steady. "Is that what you're calling it?" Lauren quickly plastered on a smile. "Everyone, this is Andrew's mom. She's been going through a difficult time. We've been trying our best to help her." "Ah, so that was the narrative. Poor declining Dawn. The burden." Someone behind me whispered. "She doesn't look confused at all." I stepped forward, calm but deliberate. Since Lauren has opened the door, I said, I think it's time everyone hears the full story. Andrew reached out. Mom, please. Withdraw your hand, I said quietly. You lost the right to guide me anywhere. Every conversation stopped. Every guest turned fully toward us. In the silence, I pulled a folder from my purse. The same folder containing the documents from the lawyer, the bank, and the investment accounts. I am not here to cause trouble, I said. I'm here because truth deserves light. Lauren's voice came out sharp. Dawn, this isn't appropriate. Neither is planning to place me in a facility behind my back, I said. Gasps. Whispers. Eyes wide. Andrew blanched. Mom, you discussed signing me in without my consent. You called me a burden. You said you were exhausted dealing with me. My eyes didn't leave Lauren's. And you were ready to get rid of me like an unwanted package. Lauren's mouth opened then closed. I looked at the crowd. These two wanted everyone to believe I was slipping mentally. That I was slow. Forgetful. That I was dragging them down. I lifted the folder. So let's clear that up. I handed the first paper to the nearest person. My lawyer's formal declaration of my full cognitive independence. The woman read it, eyes widening, and passed it along. Next, I opened the documents from the bank. Statements showing years of stable assets, mature investments, and strong financial footing. This is who I actually am, I said. Not the helpless woman they painted me to be. Lauren's face flushed a furious red. Dawn, you're twisting. No, I leaned in slightly. That's what you did. Murmurs grew louder. Someone whispered. They tried to commit her? Another said. That's awful. Another. And look at her, she's fine. I turned back to Andrew, whose eyes were wet but unfocused, spinning with panic rather than remorse. You could have talked to me, I said softly. You could have asked how I felt, what I wanted. You could have trusted me the way I trusted you your entire life. A tear rolled down his cheek, but I didn't let it sway me. You chose silence. You chose convenience. You chose her plan. Lauren stepped forward, fists clenched. You abandoned us. You ran off in the middle of the night like a coward. I left to save my life, I said. And my future. The guests stared at her. Judgment, confusion, disgust. It was all there, written plainly across their faces. A father from the local school shook his head. You two should be ashamed. A neighbor stepped back from Lauren, as if her cruelty were contagious. Andrew reached toward me again. Mom, can we talk? Privately. No, I said. This conversation belongs to every person you lied to. And then I delivered the final blow. I have my own apartment now. My own legal protections. My own future. And the next time you want access to my life, financial or otherwise, you'll go through my lawyer. Gasps again. Lauren sputtered. Your lawyer? Yes, I said calmly. My lawyer. The crowd began whispering again, louder, more condemning. Some people shook their heads at Andrew. Others outright glared at Lauren. Their faces crumpled under the weight of public truth. Everything they tried to hide was now exposed. They weren't protectors. They weren't caregivers. They weren't victims. They were selfish, cruel, calculated. And everyone saw it. I turned, purse resting on my shoulder, and walked away, past the stunned crowd, past the life I escaped, past the people who thought they could silence me. With every step, I felt lighter. Behind me, their perfect image shattered like glass hitting concrete. And I didn't pick up a single piece. The fallout from that night spread faster than I expected. Truth has a way of traveling, especially when people witness cruelty with their own eyes. I didn't reach out to them afterward. I didn't check their social media or ask neighbors for updates. But word found me anyway. It started with a message from one of their neighbors, someone I barely knew but who had been at the gathering. She reached out through the apartment complex's community support program after hearing I'd moved nearby. Dawn, I just wanted you to know. Everyone is talking about what they did to you. Nobody is on their side. I sat in my quiet living room, letting her words settle. Not out of spite. Not out of triumph. But out of simple, quiet validation. The truth had finally found its voice. Within a week, I learned that the parents from the local school, the same ones Lauren tried so hard to impress, were distancing themselves. A few outright told her they didn't feel comfortable inviting her to events anymore. She'd built her reputation on being polished, compassionate, reliable. But that night had shown everyone the rot beneath the gloss. One mother reportedly said, "If she can treat her own mother-in-law like that, imagine what she says about the rest of us." The social fallout hit her harder than she ever anticipated. Andrew didn't fare much better. At his workplace, where his entire persona rested on being a level-headed, family-oriented professional, rumors circulated quickly. Someone who attended the gathering was his coworker, and the story spread through the office like wildfire. I later heard that HR questioned him about the accusations. Not because they had legal grounds to act, but because it reflected poorly on the company's culture and leadership. A manager who tries to institutionalize his own mother for convenience? That raised eyebrows. He didn't lose his job, not immediately, but his reputation cracked. Promotions he'd been in line for were suddenly put on hold. His team became distant. Respect evaporated. Actions have echoes, and his were now loud enough to follow him everywhere. As for Lauren, her job wasn't as forgiving. She worked in a field where public image mattered. Client relations. Word of the confrontation reached one of her major clients, someone who had actually admired the way she cared for her husband's mother. When they realized that image was a lie, they pulled their account. Her company reacted swiftly. She was placed on temporary leave pending a review of her conduct, which everyone knew was corporate language for, "We don't want you representing us anymore." Then came the legal consequences. My lawyer, Mr. Rigby, filed a formal notice documenting the attempted coercion and the plan to have me sign admission papers without consent. It wasn't enough to arrest them, but it created a permanent record of their intentions. A record they couldn't erase. A record that could be used against them if they ever tried to come near my finances or medical decisions again. The document frightened them. I knew it did because Andrew left me a voicemail. The only time he reached out after the confrontation. His voice trembled. "Mom, we never meant to hurt you. Lauren says everything got twisted. Please, can we talk? Can we fix this? The lawyer. The paperwork. We didn't know you'd take it so far." So far. As though reclaiming my autonomy was an overreaction. As though self-protection was dramatic. As though survival was inconvenience. I didn't call back. Some silences are intentional. Lauren didn't message me. Not one word. But I heard she'd been crying to friends. Friends who were no longer answering her calls, claiming I had set them up, that I made them look bad. No, sweetheart. You did that on your own. The final consequence was the most poetic. Their mortgage, something they'd been comfortably paying for years, became a strain after Lauren's leave from work and Andrew's stalled advancement. Their lifestyle shrank. They put their boat up for sale. They listed one of their cars. Eventually, they downsized their home entirely. The same home I had left quietly at midnight. The same home where they whispered about discarding me. The same home where they planned my exit. Now they were the ones forced to leave. Not because I wished it. Not because I pursued it. But because life has a way of reflecting our deeds back at us. Cruelty collapses on itself. And theirs finally did. In the quiet of my new apartment, life finally settled into something gentle. Something steady. I decorated slowly, piece by piece, placing meaning where emptiness once lived. A small bookshelf beside the window. A pale blue throw blanket over the sofa. Fresh flowers in a vase Mark once bought me at a street fair. The space felt warm. Lived in. Sometimes, in the mornings, I'd sit on the balcony with a cup of tea and watch the sunlight ripple through the leaves. I could feel peace sink into my bones in a way it hadn't for years. Not surface peace. The kind you pretend to feel to keep others happy, but the real kind. The one that grows quietly from the inside. It wasn't that I stopped thinking about Andrew, or that the wound of his choices suddenly healed. Wounds like that don't disappear. They change shape. They soften. They become something you learn to live with instead of letting them define you. But I did stop blaming myself. For so long, I'd convinced myself that maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. That if I were quieter, or more helpful, or more careful, or more agreeable, things might have been different. That maybe I truly was a burden. That maybe aging meant accepting mistreatment. But now, in the stillness of my own home, I understood something in a way I never had before. Growing older doesn't erase your worth. It doesn't strip you of dignity. It doesn't make you disposable. It doesn't give others the right to write you out of your own life. I thought back to the night I overheard their plan. That moment of heartbreak, of betrayal so deep it cracked something inside me. I remembered standing in the dark hallway, realizing that the people I trusted most saw me as a problem to be solved. But now I saw something else. That moment didn't break me. It awakened me. It forced me to save myself when the people who should have protected me chose convenience instead. And in saving myself, I rediscovered the parts of me that had been buried under years of quiet endurance, strength, clarity, self-respect, and a kind of courage I didn't know I still possessed. That is the gift age brings. Not weakness, but wisdom. Not fragility, but depth. Not fear, but resilience. I thought of Mark often, his steady presence, his unwavering kindness. I imagined him beside me on the balcony, nodding with that soft smile he used to give whenever I doubted myself. I liked to believe he would have been proud. Not just that I left, but that I rebuilt. One evening, as the sun dipped low and turned the living room golden, I whispered to the quiet, I survived this, and I reclaimed my life. The truth was simple. Sometimes family fails you. Sometimes love doesn't protect you. Sometimes the people you raised lose their way. But even then, you still have the right to stand tall. You still have the right to choose yourself. You still have the right to walk away from those who harm you. I did all of that. And I found peace waiting for me on the other side. If you've stayed with me through this entire story, then you know this wasn't just about betrayal. It wasn't just about a midnight escape, or legal papers, or the unraveling of a family's facade. It was about something far deeper. It was about reclaiming the pieces of yourself that others tried to chip away. It was about refusing to let anyone, family or not, decide the value of your life. It was about remembering that age doesn't make you powerless. It makes you seasoned. It makes you aware. It makes you brave in ways younger people cannot yet understand. I survived heartbreak. I survived abandonment. And I survived the moment I realized my own child saw me as a burden instead of a blessing. But surviving isn't the end of the story. Rebuilding is. Rebuilding your peace. Rebuilding your identity. Rebuilding the life that belongs to you, and only you. The world is full of elders whose voices have been pushed into corners, whose stories have been ignored or dismissed. But stories like ours matter. They teach. They warn. They inspire. They remind people that dignity is not optional. It is a right. So if my journey resonates with you, if you've ever faced betrayal, or felt invisible, or had to choose yourself even when it hurt, know this. You are not alone. And you deserve a life where your worth is not questioned. Before you go, I want to leave you with a simple thought. What part of your life have you allowed others to dim? And what would happen if you finally took it back? If this story touched you, if you want to hear more voices like mine, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps ensure these stories continue to be told. Thank you for listening.